19th, 2014. Sean Jerking, Motion O'Donnell. And maybe Clark too, I'm not sure. Smells like copper in there. Times guy doesn't know. This new chief is going to get up there and talk about a brand new era of transparency. And guess what? They shot a guy 7 times with a rifle just a month ago, and no one knows where it happens because they won't say. I believe him. He doesn't know. But I did have to ask him about 6 times, so all's fair in asking the Times why they haven't given us that morsel of information. Did he die at 171? Did he die at 120? Did he die at 100? That's what I asked him. I'm thinking he died at 171. The assembled faithful are here in Vatican Square, awaiting the puff of smoke that will announce the arrival of the new Pope of the Seattle Police Department. Will they pick an Arizonian, an Oregonian, a Bostonian? No one will know. It's in the hands of destiny now, as we await the puff of papal smoke. They literally don't know. I mean, I've just been asking, nobody knows. Here she is, Miss America. Here she is, our ideal. Police for Seattle? Are you the new chief of police? No? All these people want to talk to you, Chief. Honestly, no one knows.
I'm in there. There you go.
Easily have been the chief of Seattle. But I am happy to announce that I have selected Kathleen O'Toole as the best candidate to move this city forward and to move public safety forward. I chose her because of her experience as the commissioner of the Boston Police Department. I chose her because she helped develop a new framework for policing in Northern Ireland to turn the Royal Ulster Constabulary into the police service of Northern Ireland. And I can tell you personally, having lived there, there isn't a tougher police department reform on the planet. For her work as chief inspector for the Garda in the Republic of Ireland, her long history of working with the Department of Justice on civil rights issues and police reform, including her current work as a monitor for East Haven, Connecticut, and dealing with their issues of police reform. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you the next Chief of Police of the City of Seattle, Kathleen O'Toole.
Thank you, Mayor, for those very kind words. It's a bit overwhelming. I'm incredibly honored and humbled to be appointed to this position. I really appreciate your vote of confidence. I promise you, I promise the police department, I promise the community that I'll work tirelessly on behalf of this city to realize your vision, and that's that the Seattle Police Department be the finest police department in this country, second to none. And I think that's very doable. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't truly believe that. So thank you very much for your vote of confidence. I'd also like to thank the selection committee, in particular Ron Sims and Pramila Jayapal. You really put us through our paces, that's for sure. It was an incredibly rigorous process. I've participated in a few of these before. I've also been a member of selection committees, and I've never seen anything like this. But it was well worth it in the long run. But thank you very much. It was done very professionally, but it was a very robust process. Active organizations. This isn't the day for long speeches, but I just want to mention 4 themes that you'll continue to hear throughout my leadership here. And one is public trust. We have to work really hard, tirelessly, to restore public trust and to implement all of the requirements of the consent decree. And I think that with the support I see here today, with the support I've heard from community members and the support I've heard from people internally in the organization, I think we're on the right track. We can't forget the past, we have to acknowledge mistakes of the past, but at the same time, I think we can see the light at the end of the tunnel and the future is bright. The mayor's made his vision very clear, and that is that the Seattle Police Department is to be second to none, and I believe we can accomplish that if we all work together, if we all harness our resources and work in that direction. Second, we need to restore department pride. And I'm sure that the people here representing the Seattle PD would echo that sentiment. And we'll work hard to do that. We need to give the troops the training, the direction, the encouragement they need. Sure, we'll hold people accountable. None of us like rogue cops. Nobody dislikes rogue cops more than good cops. But at the same time, if people make honest mistakes, we'll stand by them. But I think that there's some wonderful people in the organization, and I want them to be able to hold their heads high and know that we're all moving in the same direction, and this police department will be second to none, and I promise you that. And I'd like to acknowledge Chief Fitzsimons, who was a great role model to so many of us for so many years, and I hope he'll be readily available as a friend and confidant going forward. Thank you for being here, Chief. It means a lot. Appreciate that. Well, the third theme is crime and quality of life, and I think we need to develop a plan for each neighborhood in this city. All police departments and police chiefs need to keep their eye on the ball, and we'll always have crime and quality of life at the top of our agenda. And we'll work closely with our communities to develop those plans so everybody will have a voice in that process. And violence prevention, of course, is always very, very important, particularly youth violence prevention. It's always been an issue that's been near and dear to my heart. Getting out there, spending time in the neighborhoods. You know, of course we have to enforce, but prevention and intervention are just as important, if not more important, than enforcement. And then finally, the fourth theme is good business. We're running a large organization with lots of personnel, with lots of resources. We need to do it as effectively and efficiently as possible. We need to utilize good technologies that will enhance the way we do our business, and we need to bring strong business practices to the Seattle Police Department. We'll run it like a business. And I know we have enormous support from the business community here. I know that the Seattle Police Foundation is represented here today, and I really appreciate that. And we'll look to you for help and guidance as we move the organization forward. On a very personal note, I'm delighted that my daughter Meg, who is my dearest friend, is here with me today. We're inseparable as a family. My husband Dan is looking forward to the move to Seattle. He's a former Boston police detective, retired Boston police detective. He often told me that if I'd married a banker, it never would have lasted. Yeah, but he's been my greatest supporter. He originally was one of the people who encouraged me to become a young Boston police officer, and then throughout my career has been right behind me every step of the way. So I'm sorry that he's not here today, but he has a tendency to get a little teary-eyed too, so I'm a little embarrassing today. So again, thank you for this incredible show of support. I look forward to working with all of you, with you, Mayor, with the members of the City Council, with especially Mr. Burgess and Mr. Harrell, who both participated on that same selection committee. Look forward to working with all of you and the members of the Seattle PD and the members of the community in our goal, our collective goal, to make this the finest police organization in the nation. Thank you very much.
So we begin a new page today in policing and public safety in the city of Seattle. And this is a mayor and a council and a city attorney, Pete Holmes, thank you for being here this morning, that is committed to working with Chief O'Toole to bring reform to our department and public safety to our streets. So thank you all. We look forward to the weeks and months and years ahead as we face this challenge. And now Chief O'Toole and I are open to questions.
Mr. Mayor, a question for Chief O'Toole.
Yes, sir.
As you now approach the department, how do you assess the command staff? How important is it going to be for you to be able to bring some of your own folks as part of that command staff?
Well, that's a very good question. And I don't want to make any impulsive decisions, but I also think it's important to be decisive in the first few months. So I look forward to a transition period of 30 to 60 days. It will give me an opportunity to get to know the people in the organization and to assess their abilities and their commitment going forward. But I also do think it's important for a chief to have the option to bring in trusted allies from outside as well. So I think I hope to strike a balance, but I'll say this, continuing professional development will be one of the top priorities for this organization to ensure that we will have a robust candidate pool for chief and for command staff positions going forward. I think this has been a very difficult time for the organization, but I think, again, if we make a commitment to their future, give them direction, give them training, give them education, it will bode well for the future.
Chief O'Toole, Linda Byron from King 5. I wanted to ask you about how you motivate the police force at a time when recent assessments have shown that there has been some depolicing and less enforcement of low-level crime.
Thank you, Linda, and I apologize for avoiding you the last few days. I hope that doesn't mean we're off to a bad start. I was honoring my boss's wishes. So, I think that morale is very important in a police organization, and I hope to spend a lot of time out in the field. I hope to visit all the stations on a very regular basis, and I want my plan to reflect the plan of people in the organization who are working on the front lines. I've always found in my experience that people living and working in the communities we serve and the police officers who are out there on the front lines, they know best what the challenges are, and they usually come up with the best solutions. So I'm hoping to incorporate their input and their feedback into our plans going forward. No one person can make this change, can change this organization. It will be a collective, collaborative effort that involves everybody in this room. And I hope when they realize that they do have a strong voice in reform, that will enhance morale.
Chief, Pastor Willis.
A change driver. I love innovation, so I think it's a really good fit. And I was delighted when Megan, we've been in the witness protection program over the last few days. Megan and I had our sunglasses on and we were making the rounds through town, and even Linda Byron didn't catch up with us. we made our rounds, and Megan said the same thing. She said, "Wow, this feels so comfortable. It very much feels like home." So, and I'm sure that will be the case. But it's a great city, great people. Innovation capital.
Chief O'Toole, how would you describe your style of policing in Phoenix?
Your style? Well, my style is very collaborative. I've always said the police can't do it alone. We need to work together. We need to harness our resources. I'll work with federal and state law enforcement. I think, there's plenty of work for all of us. So in terms of the criminal justice community, I hope we can all combine our resources and work together. I'll work very closely with representatives, very diverse representatives of the community. I really welcome everybody's input and feedback. I certainly don't claim to have all the answers. I'll work with all of you to develop, the best plans possible.
So, Ms. O'Toole, may I ask, transparency,
We're gonna actually take
you have a
we're gonna
police
take a little
department
pause
here,
for a minute.
sir, you only took 4
Excuse me.
questions.
We're not done. We're going to go back to the questions, but in my excitement, I made a
I
mistake.
apologize.
And the next speaker is actually, we're going to hear from the chair of the Public Safety Committee for the Seattle City Council, Bruce Harrell, and then Bruce, the chief, and I will be available for more questions. Councilmember Harrell, my apologies. Got ahead of myself.
That process is that in the what we've done leading up to now through, again, the mayor's outstanding leadership, we listen to the community, gather that information, turn it to our great leaders, our co-chairs, Ron and Camilla, and then use that to get our superstar, our rock star. And so we took that very, very seriously, and hopefully we can have our confirmation process wrapped up in June. So I'll close with that. Again, thank you for being here, and I really look forward to her embracing of technology, her building community relations, her building the trust that she talked about. And it's a great day for Seattle on May 19th. I look forward to serving with you.
Thank you, sir. I'll let you, my apology for interrupting.
It's quite all right. Transparency was not among the 4 points that you addressed in your simple 4-point description. You also made a quip there about the witness protection program and the fact that you've been slinking around in town for the last several days, which is a ritual that is mysterious to me. I recall it happening with chiefs of police here before, but it's a little bit bizarre because you're stepping into a city where perhaps lack of transparency, secrecy in the police department is the #1 problem. No one can understand what's going on inside this police department that we're spending $200 million a year on without more transparency. As an example, I just spoke to Steve from the Seattle Times 15 minutes ago. I said, do you know where Cody Spafford died on April 4th? He was shot 7 times by Detective Jim Rogers. Where did he die? Did he die at 171 Lake Washington Boulevard, 120 Lake Washington Boulevard, 100? It has not been released. I've made numerous correct, proper requests for that information from the Public Records Unit. No response. They won't tell us where the police gunned this person down. And this is one example of many. They can keep you waiting for decades, and I mean decades. I've been after some documents from this police department, and I can assure you, Ms. O'Toole, that the #1 problem, which you did not address in your 4 points, is transparency. What is your philosophy of transparency?
Well, my first priority, as I mentioned, is public trust, and I don't think we can have public trust without transparency. So I would agree that transparency has to be at the top of the list. That goes without saying. I'm not familiar with the particular cases that you referenced, but hopefully in the coming weeks I'll get briefings. And I think a police department should be as transparent as possible. I worked on transparency on both sides of the Atlantic. And I think in Northern Ireland, we created a police service that's second to none in terms of transparency. In Boston, I worked very closely with the Northeastern University Department of Race and Justice to develop better structures for transparency in the Boston Police. So believe me, I'm all for transparency, and I hope that the proof will be in the pudding. You'll see that hopefully we'll walk the talk going forward. As for the comments about the witness protection program, believe me, that was totally in jest, and hopefully I didn't offend anybody with that. But I was trying to be very respectful of the process and of the other candidates, the other finalists in the process. So thank you.
Chief O'Toole, do you think that the influence of the police unions, which have opposed reform, are a problem? And if so, how do you plan to break that influence?
Well, I could probably speak from personal experience. First, I should mention, full disclosure, that at one point, at different points in my career, I was a member of 3 different police unions as I rose through the ranks. I was a member of a patrol officers union, I was a member of a detectives union, and I was a member of a Superior Officers Federation in Boston. So I have respect for unions. I understand the role that they play, but I also understand my role as a manager. And I think that when I took over in Boston, there were dozens of unfair labor practices pending. Union management relationships were at an all-time low, and I called in the union leaders and said, look, can we at least start with a clean slate? You know, maybe we'll end up in the same place, but let's at least try and start with a clean slate. And we maintained strong lines of communication, and in more cases than not, we were able to come to resolution to our mutual advantage. I never felt as though I gave away the store, but at the same time, I felt that I was fair, and we had a very respectful relationship. My hope is that that will be the case too. I had the opportunity to hear from 2 union leaders who were members of the selection team during the process, and both of them indicated their willingness to work with the new chief and to help bring the department forward. So as far as I'm concerned, we're going to start with a clean slate. We're going to start on the right foot. I'm sure from time to time we'll disagree, but I hope that we do it in a very respectful way. The question, I'm the eternal optimist, so I don't think a lot about big obstacles. I mean, it's occurred to me that there's so much support. People are so eager to move forward here. The community wants to see the police department move forward. It seems that people within the organization want to get beyond this very difficult time. I think that restoring community trust will be the biggest challenge, but we'll work very, very hard at that. And I think by getting out there and meeting with people in the communities and talking to them and listening to them. I know, Mayor, I do tend to talk a bit, but I'm a very good listener too, and I'll spend a lot of time listening to the community and incorporating their feedback into our work.
Oh, say, Chief Bailey, Richard Lee. I believe we have a little legal action going between us. You may have seen it over the Kurt Cobain crime scene photos. What is your opinion, Chief Bailey, on whether those photos should be released? Chief Bailey? The lawsuit was addressed to you. You're actually named in the lawsuit, so I'm pretty sure you've seen my documents, sir. Do you think that the police department should just let loose with those 20-year-old photos?
Look forward to working with you.
Yes,
Chief Bailey. So you don't have to get in his way. He's an adult. He can answer the question. Chief Bailey, do you think that those 20-year-old photographs of the Kurt Cobain death scene could be released sometime soon, sir?
Excuse me.
Do you think you could do that, sir? Because obviously it's going to show that Cobain did not die of a shotgun wound, which is going to be a very big problem for the Seattle Police Department. You can count on it. Damn straight. Giving old Kathleen the eyeball there as the shutters closed. There's a very big problem they never told you about there, Kathleen. It's gonna hurt wicked smart. It's gonna hurt like a beasted. She's from Boston. Hi, Sean O'Donnell.
Hi,
so you
how are
were
you, Mr.
the expert witness for Unsolved Mysteries back in 1997, right? The Kurt Cobain case?
I'm really sorry, Robert. I've got a meeting at 11 o'clock.
Okay, well, this will only take a second. It's been 20 years since Cobain's death, and I believe in a civilized society, we just release documents like that so that there's not this veil of secrecy around all police functions. Do you think that it's now time for those crime scene photos to be released?
I think it's really exciting to see the way the new chiefs come in and describe the...
That's not the question I asked, sir.
That she's going to be transparent.
Well, Mr. O'Donnell, I believe that you were a part of the effort to conceal those photographs from public view. You were the chief public relations officer at the time, isn't that correct, sir?
I was the public information officer. Yes, I was at that point.
You were the chief spokesman for the Seattle Police Department.
No, I was the public information officer.
Do you think the photo should come out now? Do you think that the public deserves to see the misdeeds of the Seattle Police Department?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
In that particular case, sir,
Mr. Lee.
the cover-up of the fact that he did not die of a shotgun wound, Mr. O'Donnell. Walk of shame, as so many have done. We get all the good exclusives. If that old guy was the OPA head, that is a very old looking guy.
Just that style that just made her just, I think for many of us say, we get her, she wants to come, she would be incredible. She would be incredible. So we're going to have an incredible show.
And Mr. Sims, what was your official title in this selection process?
Pramila Jayapal and I were called the co-chairs of two different processes. There was a community-wide process, and then there was a selection of the chief process. And then there was a fine-tuning so that only Pramila and I were accompanying staff to go out and do the final interviews in the respective communities of the candidates. So
Thank you for
I would call it, we were just, we were volunteers of a civic group.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, say, Mr. Sims, it's just Mr. Sims now. You're not holding office at present. You were the King County executive, though, in the 1990s. 2 terms, was it?
And?
Okay. Well, I don't know whether you recall my face or my voice, but my name is Richard Lee, and been on television for 20 years.
Yeah.
And back in the days when you were King County executive, I had a brief conversation with you about Section 895 of the King County Charter. Section 895 provides that, quote, an inquest shall be held to investigate the causes and circumstances of any death involving a member of the law enforcement agency of the county in the performance of his duties. And, I've recently seen a video interview between Dan Satterberg, the county prosecutor, and Richard C. Harrell, the King County medical examiner. He was in the medical examiner's office when you were King County executive. He's still in the King County medical examiner's office. In fact, he's the chief pathologist there now. And it's just very strange to me to see Mr. Satterberg and Dr. Harrell talking about all this crime scene investigation they're doing and all the sleuthing and lab work they're doing to solve crimes together.
Is, I'm no longer an office holder, so what is your question? What is your question? I'm no longer an office holder.
Not an office holder, but you were the King County executive at the time that I brought this to your attention.
So the issue is, I am not an office holder.
Do you believe, sir?
What is your question?
Do you believe now, or did you believe in the 1990s, that the King County medical examiner is a part of King County law enforcement?
The King County medical examiner has always been independent of law enforcement.
Well, can you define independent? You mean there's funding?
Structured to be independent.
They get funding from the health department.
That is correct.
But Dr. Harrell goes on television and talks about all of his expertise in solving crimes.
Among the many things they do, they solve crimes. They assist. That is not their primary function. Is much broader than that. But I think you should go talk to him.
But you understand the meaning of my question, which is, if there's misconduct on the part of the medical examiner's office...
I am no longer an elected official. I really appreciate your advocacy, but right now,
what is
I'm
the
going to
role of the King County executive in inquests?
I think you should go
The
ask.
King
I
County
think you should
executive
go-
calls
You
for the
should
inquest.
go ask.
That is his role under
County-
the charter, correct?
I think you should go ask Executive Val Constantine rather than me. It was good talking to you.
'Cause
Good
you're the
seeing
guy,
you.
you're the guy who blew it in the 90s. Sir.
Well, you know, that's your opinion.
Well, I addressed a lot of
excuse me.
material to you, and I spoke to you personally.
That's really good.
And we both know
And
that there was a lot of misconduct on the part of the King County Medical Examiner's office.
We don't know that.
And you would have been fully justified
I don't know
in
that.
calling for an inquest. Well, you never
you and
bothered
I-
to respond to my written material,
You and I
sir.
disagreed, and it was really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you very much. But there's other people elected right now. You can talk to them. Peace to you. Peace to you.
I'm not being rude. That's documentary style. You don't have to say thank you. David Letterman doesn't say thank you half the time. It's just interview style. It's not rudeness. And yeah, I'm reading directly from the conversation that we had previously. I'm having a conversation with Ron Sims, two-term county executive. This was Sims at an environmental conference at Seattle Center, May 18th, 2004. But the relevant thing about him being there in the 90s is he's the guy who took over from Gary Locke, the first guy who blew it. And here we have Ron Sims, the second guy who blew it. Mr. Sims, how are you today? Fine, how are you today? Say you're running for governor now. I am, and congratulations on that. Sims, thank you very much. And sir, I wanted to direct your attention to this document here. It's addressed to you. It's from March 11th, just a couple of months ago, and it's titled, "The Need for a Federal Corruption Investigation and a Public Inquest into the Kurt Cobain death case." Have you read this document, sir? I have not. Okay, well, it's addressed to you. It was sent certified in mail. Persons in your office assured me that it had arrived. It concerns the case of Kurt Cobain, the homicide decedent from 1994. Sims, yes. And the evidence has developed in recent years that personnel of the King County Medical Examiner took part in the criminal mutilation and looting of Cobain's body at the funeral home. This is all based on evidence by Cobain's wife, who published this in a 1,200-word narrative that was published, and ellipses for my transcript for today. And so I mentioned the number of days that it's been. Well, you know, if I wrote on March 11th, and this was in, did I say August? Sorry, May. So it's been more than 2 months, obviously, when I'm bringing this up with Mr. Sims. And I say, all of these 2 months have passed, and I've heard nothing about it. And let me ask you about Section 895 of the King County Charter. As you can see, Section 895 provides that, quote, "An inquest shall be held to investigate the causes and circumstances of any death involving a member of the law enforcement agency of the county in the performance of his duties." And so if this death occurred, whether it was an unidentified man steps between us. "Excuse me just a second, we're going to get started," he says to me. Sims begins to move away from Lee without a word. "So, sir, well, what I don't appreciate, I don't know who you are, but I really don't appreciate your interrupting this important conversation. Why are you blocking me? Why are you assaulting me?" Unidentified man. "Because he needs to. I'm not." "No, no, 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 no. Give him a chance to answer the question, pal. You're not the King County executive." "Excuse me, sir, could you please," says unidentified man. "Mr. Sims," says Lee. Sims, "I'll have to get back to you. I have to do this introduction. Thank you very much." Part of an interview with Lee conducted with Sims at an environmental conference at Seattle Center, May 18th, 2004. well into his second term when he's also running for governor. Running for governor. So if he, in any way in our conversation today, tried to convey a sense that he carefully pondered all of the details and made a wise decision and informed me in writing as to what the factors entering into his decision-making process may have been, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. No way. Jose. He cut and ran from the issue back then, like he did today, and obviously he's quite correct in saying that he's not an elected official now, but he's appointing and helping to appoint an elected official. He's still quite in the game, ain't he? And he was an elected official then, and he's aspiring to be one in the future, probably. If the pay is right, old Kathleen O'Toole's getting $250,000 a year. Holy crepe. That's a lot of Beantown beans, especially since this town doesn't hold on to them for just a couple of years the way often it goes in big cities. And if anything attracted her to Seattle, it had to be that. The possibility at age 60 she'd be able to walk into a 5, 6, 8 year sort of commitment. Ah, 6 years, $1.5 million. 8 years, $2 million. And that's just the higher in salary. That's not the generous pension, the hugely generous pension. I mean, when Stamper retired, I remember they ran it down, and that was in the dark ages of compensation back in 1999, when he was only making, I think, around $105,000 a year. They've more than doubled that, haven't they? But of course, it was my voice asking about transparency, and I probably will get zero exposure in the news. Who wants to hear a question about transparency? The problem with transparency is that the media is complicit because, you know, how come this guy doesn't know where the guy got gunned down? To all appearances, and let me make it perfectly clear that there is a sensational aspect to this thing, and if you want to feel the sensation, feel it right now, baby. The sensational aspect of this is, it looks like the guy drove his car out to Cobain's for a last stand kind of thing, or more likely, since he seems to have dropped his pellet gun and didn't have a real gun, kind of a diminished capacity kind of defense. Bank robbers in this town, in this state, they can get state time, they can get federal time. Heck, who knows? Maybe I've never heard of a case going this way, but maybe they can get mental institutionalization as well. I'm not familiar with the case, but in any case, if you're going to rob a bank, I mean, there's a guy who was in the papers, he's, you know, on the online papers, shall we say, a couple of years ago, just like 2 years ago, getting into the UW law school. And they didn't say he had some kind of a genius level IQ or something. He was just above average for a con. And what this con did was he robbed a bunch of banks when he was a teenager in the region. I mean, trying to become the new, drugstore cowboy or whatever. I don't know what his deal was, but not only did he get out in not too many years on some sort of youthful indiscretion type of deal, I think he served federal time, which is easier than being locked up with all the, murderers and rapists. And he's in UW Law School, so gosh, if old Cody Spafford had seen that, he would have noticed that some kind of diminished capacity defense really can work for you. And so in robbing the bank over in Madison Park, an area he was not living in, presumably because he worked over in Ballard, which is about a half-hour drive, even without traffic. Presumably his defense was he was going to try to escape, and he was dressed as a transvestite. Dog Day Afternoon, of course. Attica! And Aaron Burkhardt was in a band called Attica, actually. That's why it's stuck in my head. That and Pacino, you know. And so he was going to rob the place, try to get away, but he failed to get away because they were actually following him. He'd drive over to Cobain's place, take his last stand with his pellet gun and his little wood-handled kitchen knife up there on Cobain's garage, and that looks like Looney Tunes all the way. A guy in drag on top of Cobain's garage, which is flat now. It's not A-shaped any longer. And the reason I say this is the 120 address is A-shaped. The 100 address is far too A-shaped for the drama to have played out there, and the 120 address, which we've referred to as the Howard Schultz residence, I don't know that he still lives there, but he did own it for a long time. The suspect, Spafford, ran through a yard. There's no yard there. It looks like it's 100% concrete. And obviously, as I showed you the photos of everyone gathered around the top of the stairs there in Veretta Park, they weren't focusing on the Schultz residence as far as I can tell. And there's been no evidence other than perhaps a joking claim by a TV camera guy that there was a gurney coming down that Old Fair Lane. And anyway, they've got video, you know, that's obviously one of the main reasons for needing more transparency. You know, the media in this town are such losers, which is why I'll probably get no recognition for asking the best question of the day, which is, what about the transparency issue? Really, I mean, honestly, I hate to beat a person up in her first, 10 minutes on the job, but how would they say it in Boston, Holy crepe. She comes into a police department where the biggest problem of all is the tradition of secrecy, which does involve the media, of course, as we've often said, since edition 1, the bucket of blood reference, the media has to sell it, the police have to provide the bucket of blood. And, her first, practically the first friggin' words out of her mouth. She made a wicked awesome mistake, if you ask me. And why is that? She's slinking around like she didn't say slinking, but she's going around like she's in witness protection. They did this with Stamper too, but actually, I remember that he got caught and photographed, and so the ritual was blown. And Kurlikowski, Kurlikowski's such a drag queen himself, with that little, I'm not saying he's an actual drag queen, but him in those little uniforms. He's the drug czar now. I believe he's still the drug czar. I believe he's been the drug czar for most or all of the Obama administration. The drug czar, cabinet level. That guy was such a little vacancy, a vacancy in a uniform. And he always had that pout on his face, like he was ready to break into tears if anyone was going to ask him a hard question, That's the guy's signature move. Pouting all the time like he's ready to break into tears because he looks like he's 6 years old, Gil Kurlikowski. Our Gil Kurlikowski, your drug czar. And there was a Frontline documentary, I believe it was Frontline, but it was on PBS. I believe they did 90 minutes, and I saw a little flash of Kurlikowski in the opening of the documentary when they're doing this montage of the cool people that they're going to talk to. And I believe my eyeballs are on the screen for the solid 90 minutes. Kurlikowski never spoke. He only allowed them a photo op to deceive the viewers. This is that drug show that had that producer from The Wire going on endlessly about what he thinks ought to be done about drugs in America. But this city has given up on policing pot forever, or rather completely, or almost completely. pot is legal as of any day now through approved retailers and non-approved delivery services, apparently. So old Kathleen O'Toole. I'm a fan of Peter O'Toole. My favorite year, Lord Jim. And of course, above all, Lawrence of Arabia. But with all due deference to Peter O'Toole and this new gal, guess what? Early indications are pretty clear. Tool and only tool. A tool of the powers that be, not a power unto herself. At age 60, with her phony ass claims of having straightened out that Northern Ireland situation. Sure you did. She was a part of an effort by many experts in international policing. I don't know how international Boston is, but so. Sean O'Donnell, he straightened out that Balkan situation. I said that to him once. I believe it was right here in the old building. Got on the elevator with Sean. He had been gone for like a year or something. I said, hey, Sean O'Donnell, heard you straightening out that Balkan situation over there. All right. In other words, Sean had to be put on ice in a mild sort of way, get him out of town, send him over yonder in a, I guess he was in a blue helmet over there in the peacekeeping forces, leaving a very lucrative and influential and powerful position to go wear a blue helmet. Unless he was straightening the whole thing out, the way Kathleen straightened out that whole Northern Ireland thing. She got the Royal Constabulary to become the Po Po of Ulster. Sounds pretty bloody royal. Also, Clark Kimmerer, we saw it when we picked up our documents over here at PDHQ. The documents that include the body shots of Cobain, the two that have been apparently not leaked because they handed them over to me. There was a little coffee table set over there, and Clark Kimmerer was having a coffee with some gal. You know, it's an extension of the cafe indoors. And I don't know why they don't have it out now, but there you go. Anyway, that is all for now. Obviously, that elevator shot was classic. I believe I had eye on viewfinder, and good old Kathleen got served, you know. Hey, served with better information than anybody. I mean, presumably, just like the ACLU gal, she probably doesn't read the papers, so she hasn't bothered to type in Seattle Police on a Google search recently. Maybe she should have done that, huh? Because what she would have found out is she just walked into a rock star murder cover-up. What you gonna do about that, honey? And the easy answer is be a tool. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't capitulate. But I'm not expecting any high standards. Now, in a conciliatory note, her spiel was so generic and so affable that you can at least say, well, she came to town and she didn't piss anyone off except me and other people concerned about transparency the first day, you know, with that crack. The crack about being in witness protection for the last few days. But to all the people who really matter, the union and the rank and file and the union representing the higher ups, and everybody wants to get their money out of this situation, they're going to be non-threatened by her. But Harry was a bit of a turd. Harry's supposed to be he's supposed to be Mr. Affability. He really, I watched the tape this morning of his being appointed in the same suit with the big, like 3 or 4 big gold stripes on it. And they set up this shot. It was like Jim Morrison walking into I just saw this documentary recently. Where they play the U.S. Open in Long Island. And the Doors never played that many concerts, but they show him liking to mix with the fans, and Harry was strutting around in that suit with the big freaky gold sleeves, stripes, chief of police, and all these cops were around him like he was Michael Jordan. He just did the 5 beat. But Szynski didn't show up. They didn't introduce the OPA guy, maybe because we saw him walk away, and he looks like he's about 100 years old. He's from Boise, Idaho. And he's real old looking. I mean, he's old looking in pictures, and I guess that was him. And, Captain Pugil, the ass grabber, the guy who grabbed my ass back here in that big Diaz hearing. Grabbed my ass. I said, how vulgar. You grabbed my ass. He actually retired during that week that the Cobain stuff came out. Maybe it was his idea. It had to be somebody's bright idea because it wasn't Szynski, so whose was it? Big mystery. That's the one thing I wanted to ask Clark. Your bright idea, bright boy, or someone else's bright idea, bright boy? I mean, the PD has no shortage of bright boys around with big ideas, but an idea that bright only comes along like once in a generation, man. I sure would like to know what brainiac came up with that one. It's the 20th anniversary. Why don't we develop that film and get on TV, and we'll be like heroes because we'll be letting loose with the vital information that just proves our point of view. Except it doesn't. And Detective Szynski is not a compelling witness to me. And obviously, the door is wide open to litigate on this. Oh, why didn't Harry say you can deal with the city attorney on that? Something like that. He said nada. So sayonara for now. Time is 11:29.
Community, gather that information, turn it to our great leaders, our co-chairs, Ron and Camilla, and then use that to get our superstar, our rock star. And so we took that very, very seriously, and hopefully we can have our confirmation process wrapped up in June. So I'll close with that. Again, thank you for being here, and I really look forward to her embracing of technology, her building community relations, her building the trust that she talked about. And it's a great day for Seattle on May 19th. I look forward to serving with you.
Thank you, sir. I'll let you. My apology for interrupting.
It's quite all right. Transparency was not among the 4 points that you addressed in your simple 4-point description. You also made a quip there about the witness protection program and the fact that you've been slinking around in town for the last several days, which is a ritual that is mysterious to me. I recall it happening with chiefs of police here before, but it's a little bit bizarre because you're stepping into a city where perhaps lack of transparency, secrecy in the police department is the #1 problem. No one can understand what's going on inside this police department that we're spending $200 million a year on without more transparency. As an example, I just spoke to Steve from the Seattle Times 15 minutes ago. I said, do you know where Cody Spafford died on April 4th? He was shot 7 times by Detective Jim Rogers. Where did he die? Did he die at 171 Lake Washington Boulevard, 120 Lake Washington Boulevard, 100? It has not been released. I've made numerous correct, proper requests for that information from the Public Records Unit. No response. They won't tell us where the police gunned this person down. And this is one example of many. They can keep you waiting for decades, and I mean decades. I've been after some documents from this police department, and I can assure you, Ms. O'Toole, that the #1 problem, which you did not address in your 4 points, is transparency. What is your philosophy of transparency?
Well, my first priority, as I mentioned, is public trust, and I don't think we can have public trust without transparency. So I would agree that transparency has to be at the top of the list. That goes without saying. I'm not familiar with the particular cases that you referenced, but hopefully in the coming weeks I'll get briefings. And I think a police department should be as transparent as possible. I worked on transparency on both sides of the Atlantic, and I think in Northern Ireland we created a police service that's second to none in terms of transparency. In Boston I worked very closely with the Northeastern University Department of Race and Justice to develop better structures for transparency in the Boston Police. So believe me, I'm all for transparency, and I hope that the proof will be in the pudding. You'll see that hopefully we'll walk the talk going forward. As for the comments about the witness protection program, believe me, that was totally in jest, and hopefully I didn't offend anybody with that. But I was trying to be very respectful of the process and of the other candidates, the other finalists in the process. So thank you.
Chief O'Toole, do you think that the influence of the police unions, which have opposed reform, are a problem? And if so, how do you plan to break that influence?
Well, I could probably speak from personal experience. First, I should mention, full disclosure, that at one point, at different points in my career, I was a member